Hello, my name is Carly Manussi, and today I will be presenting information that you need to know about the chemical hydrogen sulfide due to the high possibility of contact with it in the workplace. Hydrogen sulfide is a colorless, flammable, extremely hazardous gas with a rotten egg smell. It occurs naturally in crude petroleum and natural gas. It can be released from sewage sludge, manure, and sulfur hot springs, and with natural gas. It also can be produced by the breakdown of organic matter in human or animal waste like sewage. It is heavier than air and can collect in low-lying and enclosed poorly ventilated areas such as basements, manholes, sewer lines, and underground telephone electrical vaults. Hydrogen sulfide is also used or is a byproduct in many industrial processes such as the ones listed here on this slide. Working in areas and conditions such as confined spaces, windless or low-lying areas, marshy landscapes, and hot weather that speeds up the rotting of manure and other organic material can increase your risk of overexposure to hydrogen sulfide. The primary route of exposure is by inhalation. Other ways of being exposed but are less likely to occur are by ingestion and contact with the eyes or skin. The Association Advancing Occupational and Environmental Health recommends a threshold limit value of 1 part per million as an 8-hour time weighted average and a short-term exposure limit of 5 parts per million. The National Institute of Occupational Health and Safety recommended exposure limit is 10 parts per million, 10-minute ceiling. The National Institute of Occupational Health and Safety standard is consistent with the exposure guidelines used by most scientific and regulatory bodies internationally. But the National Institute of Occupational Health and Safety is not a regulatory agency, and thus this standard is not mandated by law. However, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, exposure limit is regulatory. This is law and must be complied with. OSHA's permissible exposure level is 20 parts per million ceiling, 50 parts per million, 10-minute max peak. The lethal dose of hydrogen sulfide is 600 parts per million at a 30-minute, 800 parts per million with a 5-minute exposure. Anything over 100 parts per million is considered immediately dangerous to life and health. The effects of hydrogen sulfide exposure can vary depending on the level and duration of exposure. Listed here are some of them. Repeated exposure can result in health effects occurring at levels that were previously tolerated without any effect. Low concentrations irritate the eyes, nose, throat, and respiratory system. They cause burning, tearing of eyes, cough, shortness of breath. People with asthma may experience breathing difficulties at a much less exposure level. There are no proven antidotes to hydrogen sulfide gas poisoning. The side effects and symptoms can be treated or managed. In serious cases, hospitalization may occur. Call your doctor or go to an emergency room should you develop any unusual side effects or symptoms within 24 hours. On this slide, you can see these are some of the symptoms that you may experience. To lessen the likelihood of exposure to hydrogen sulfide, the air needs to be tested for the presence and concentration of hydrogen sulfide by a qualified person using test equipment such as an H2S monitor. As you can see, there is one shown on this slide. This person, the qualified person, also determines if fire explosion precautions are necessary. Anyone that is working in the area should be equipped with an H2S monitor. If gas is present, the space should be ventilated. If the gas cannot be removed, use appropriate respiratory protection and any other necessary personal protective equipment, PPE, rescue and communication equipment. Atmospheres containing high concentrations, which would be greater than 100 parts per million, are considered immediately dangerous to life and health, and a self-contained breathing apparatus is required. Train and educate workers about hazards and controls such as I am doing now. Also establish proper rescue procedures as not to expose rescue workers as well. This concludes my presentation on hydrogen sulfide. You should know now what it is, where it can be found, and the proper safety procedures and precautions to take to work in and around it, according to OSHA standards. Thank you.